And it's always a pleasure coming in and speaking at this organization. You guys have the best organization in the state. I want to thank you all for having me speak today on such a somber occasion. Having served our nation for over 22 years and having seen men and women pay the ultimate sacrifice, I'm honored to be here. I wanted to share one story from my journal entry on April 8th, 2007 in Iraq. It's Easter Sunday. This started much like any other day here on LSA on Anaconda in Iraq. I was on call the evening of the 7th. I took one call at 1:30 in the morning and woke up at 7 a.m. I showered, headed over to Charlie Company for my regular medevac flight day. I brought 4 American flags with me to fly on the aircraft with my crew. Shortly after lunch, we received reports of troops in contact. The radio squawked out, "First up, chase, medevac, medevac, medevac." I sprinted out to the aircraft. I threw on my bulletproof chicken plate vest, nice little square in the center, and wrapped around in my chamber of my 9mm pistol and strapped in for the ride. There was an urgent surgical patient, a U.S. Army soldier by the name of Jesse Williams. He sustained a gunshot wound to the head, rendering fire support for his team, and we flew to Fog Warhorse for the evacuation. As we arrived, there was no ambulance, so Private Kirby and I ran out to the hospital. We found him doing CPR, and thankfully, he survived that. He was critically ill, but alive. If we could get him to the neurosurgeon in Balad, maybe he'd have a chance. Through all the blood, sweat, and heat in the back of our helicopter, where it gets 150 degrees in the summer, I took his arm out of the blanket to register an oxygen level, and there was a rosary wrapped around his left hand. Again, this is Easter Sunday, guys. And to let you all in on a little secret, there's no atheists in foxholes. Jesse knew exactly what he was fighting for, and he had faith in God to put him where he was most needed. I wrapped the rosary back into his hand, I checked his vitals, and I said a prayer. We arrived at the 332nd Air Force Theater Hospital after a 10-minute flight and brought Jesse inside for the surgical team. The helipad has a covered walkway leading into the hospital in Balad. We call it Heroes Highway. Under this walkway, there's a huge American flag draped underneath, hanging above, right under the tent ceiling for the dying and injured to see as they roll into the trauma facility where we work tirelessly to save their lives. For some, that's the last thing they see. I walked again down Heroes Highway back to the helipad, and as I got into my aircraft, my heart sank. I looked down, I saw the rosary laying on the litter pan of my aircraft, in a pool of Jesse's blood. It had fallen out of his hand as we transferred him to the gurney, and I held the rosary tight as we lifted off and returned to our medevac compound. The plan was to return to the hospital after my shift and bring the rosary back to him. I knew he would be in a coma for quite some time, but the rosary obviously meant a lot to him. It was the last thing he was clutching as he slipped into unconsciousness. When I finished my shift at midnight, I called the hospital and found out that he did not survive. I then called patient admin to transfer me to casualty reporting and then to mortuary affairs. I wanted to get the rosary back to his family. I didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle of belongings and paperwork. I wanted to personally get it home to his family. I mailed that rosary with a letter to his wife. I wanted her to know that her hero, her husband, died a hero, and he gave his life saving colleagues. I was the last hand to hold his before the cruelty of war took him from the earth. The night is now drawing to a close on this Easter Sunday, and I'm tired. I'm short on sleep. I'm emotionally drained. The flags flown with me today will be given to my loved ones back home. I have these certificates made up by the operations crew at Cutter Medevac. These flags flew with me personally in combat operations, saving lives of true heroes. I could not save everyone. We were all there in support of the country we love and for each other, and I'm proud to be part of that. Jesse's sacrifice on Easter Sunday hit me hard. He sacrificed everything. I made sure to mention it with a letter that I wrote to each member of my family to accompany the flags that I flew and sent home. Each letter mentioned his sacrifice, and I mailed them quickly in case I didn't live long enough to get them out. The medevac missions were dangerous. They were shooting down helicopters. We lost 8 aircraft in a 2-week span, and the random mortar attacks were getting more frequent. My mother still has her flag and the letter displayed in her home. As for the letter I mailed to Jesse's wife, Sonia, I never knew if she received it or not. On April 8th, 2022, exactly 15 years to the day of his death, I received a Facebook message from his wife. She told me it brought her and her family comfort to know how he died. She told me she thought about contacting me over the years, but she couldn't find the courage because the loss was so painful. 15 years later, she thanked me, and it brought me an overwhelming sense of emotion and peace. I listed Jesse and his wife as an acknowledgement in my book, Be the Weight Behind the Spirit. Jesse left behind a 1-year-old daughter, Amaya, who grew up without knowing him. She's graduating high school this next year, and she will feel that emptiness in her heart as she walks across that stage. Jesse gave everything. He gave up those nights snuggling his daughter reading bedtime stories. He gave up lazy Saturday mornings sleeping in with his wife. I cherish these moments with my family more than anything in the world. Jesse gave up birthdays and weddings and holidays for eternity. All for you and me to enjoy those moments with our families. This is what we honor today, his ultimate sacrifice. Army Staff Sergeant Jesse L. Williams, 25, killed April 8, 2007 by a sniper. When most men and women hear gunfire, they run. When Sergeant Williams heard gunfire, he ran toward it. Devoted to his colleagues and fellow soldiers, Jesse had been serving in Baghdad with the 3rd Stryker Brigade, 2nd Infantry Division. Snipers were Williams' biggest fear in Iraq, and he was quoted in his hometown paper. I can fight people eye to eye, but I can't fight back if I can't see them. Jesse won the Purple Heart after shrapnel struck his arm during a clash with insurgents on his first tour, and a Bronze Star for rescuing 2 soldiers from a burning vehicle 3 weeks prior to his death on his 2nd tour. His unit came under attack, and a roadside bomb ignited extra gasoline aboard a vehicle in which 2 of the occupants were trapped. With complete disregard for his own safety, he saved them both. 2 separate trips into a burning vehicle. Just before his 2nd tour of duty, Jesse spoke with his hometown city council. It was just before Christmas, and ironically, it was to support a proposed memorial to honor men and women who died serving our country. His father, Herb, recounted those words the day Jesse was killed. Jesse thought he would come down and talk about it, the memorial. And now his name is going to be on it. It's just eerie. The best and the brightest this country has to offer have died on battlefields all across the world. Their spirit and their determination live on through the men and women that enjoy these freedoms we enjoy every day in North Carolina and across America. Those freedoms are paid for by the sacrifices of true heroes, the men and women we honor today on Memorial Day. Having carried the body bags of some of these heroes off those battlefields, I'm reminded of it every day. The best way we can honor that sacrifice is to not give up on America. Amen. We must engage our communities. We need to build the next generation of Americans to rise up and meet global challenges. The men and women who have sacrificed everything did it for America to endure, for the torch to be passed on. To endure, we have to pick up that torch and teach this younger generation about those sacrifices. That is what Be the Weight Behind the Spear is all about. It's my personal leadership ethos. It's a call to action for all of us. Be the weight behind the spear. When people ask you what they can do to honor these men and women, tell them to engage their communities. Tell them to coach a Little League, be a mentor, get involved in their church, volunteer in their schools. America's best resource is our people, our coaches, teachers, mentors, volunteers, and families. This is what these men and women died for, and that is why we celebrate Memorial Day. Tricia Jameson, Joshua Ford, David Carter, Jesse Williams, and many more. May God bless our great state of North Carolina. May He comfort our Gold Star families of those that gave the last full measure of devotion. And may He continue to bless these United States of America. Thank you.